Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories. I'm so glad that you're here. Today on the podcast, I speak with Mariella DeSantiago, who has a podcast called New Mom Talk. She speaks with experts, she has conversations with other moms, and she covers all the subjects of being a mom and staying home and nursing and all the things. If you're a mom, you know there's lots of things to know. Our word of the week this week
It's the word of the week.
is alone. If you are a mom, especially first time moms, have you ever felt alone in what you're going through? Have you ever thought that maybe your kid was the only kid in the world doing this thing, or the way you felt, or the way your body felt? Have you ever felt alone in thinking these things? I'm sure you have. I know I did. One of the reasons Mariella created this podcast was so that women could get connected and they could learn that they're not alone in these feelings. They're not alone in what their body's going through or, what the way their child is developing. They're not alone. What she's doing is really great and encouraging and empowering new moms to learn and to just enjoy the process without being stressed as little as possible anyway. I hope that you will enjoy this conversation. And if you know a new mom, please point them to Mariella's podcast and her website. She's got some great resources, and her podcast is wonderful. I think it's very, very helpful, and I'm excited to share it with you. Have a great day.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for talking to me today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited.
Me too. I don't know if you were on a lot of podcasts, but I've only been a guest on one. And the whole time I was like the lady was asking me questions, I was thinking of questions to ask her. Like I could not get out of host mode. So it was hard for me. I don't know, maybe you do it all the time, but I had to stop doing that. All I could do was think of questions I need to ask her.
I this summer have really been focusing on guesting. And I've been
Good.
taking a break from recording for my podcast
Have you?
until September. Yeah, I'm
Oh
like I'm
yeah.
taking the summer off. I just want
Yeah,
to, relax and spend it with my toddler.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you're in California, so your weather, you can enjoy your time off because your weather's always great. I'm in Texas. It's not always like that here.
Oh, it's probably super hot. We're in Texas.
East Texas, Northeast Texas. Yeah, it's in the 90s right now. It's
Uh,
yeah,
just a little toasty.
just a little warm. But we can't ever be surprised. Like people complain about it, and I'm like, it's going to happen every year. It's not a shock. This is how it is on here. So, oh well. So I'm so excited to talk to you. I love the idea of your podcast and what you're doing because I think your podcast is called the New Mom Talk. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
I think how awesome would that have been when my kids were growing up? We didn't have podcasts then. My kids are all grown. So we didn't have anything like this back then. But how awesome would it have been
Oh, there we go.
to
It's
be
putting
able
do
to
not
listen?
disturb.
I don't know, to be able to listen to, moms talk about different subjects and get insight because I don't know about you, but when my kids were little, you think you're the only one dealing with what you're dealing with. Like it's brings such comfort to know that other moms are kind of going through the same things. So what do you love about what you're doing with your podcast?
So I the reason I started this was because I needed it. Like I was on Google all of the time looking for answers about anything and everything. And as a new mom, like you have no idea what you're doing. You have no
Right.
idea what your body's going through. You're crying all the time. Your hair is falling out. You, may struggle with mental health, you may struggle with nursing or just anything and everything. And so I thought there was something out there that existed and there wasn't. So I was like, I cannot be the
Yeah,
only one that's looking for this.
sure.
And so what I love most about it is the feedback that I've gotten from other moms that are like, oh my goodness, I need this. I'm always on Google because that is us. We're
Yep.
always
Yeah.
like my baby won't stop turning. Shit. Is that
Right.
safe? Like the first
Yeah.
time they're in their crib and it everything is a freak out moment that first
Mhm.
year and you're sleep deprived. So rather than having moms Google it, I really wanted to bring that evidence-based science to answer those questions and just give very like here are the answers.
Yeah.
Take what works for you
Right.
and leave what doesn't. Because
Yeah.
it's not the same for everyone, right? Like
No.
the sleep training works for some, doesn't work for some. Some people are nursing, some people are pumping, some people are formula feeding. So you have to take what works for you and what
Yeah.
you are Googling.
Yeah. And it even is different with each kid. Like it's not even just different moms, it's even with each kid is, it's going to be different. So you have guests on, you have experts on that can talk about different areas in parenting and momming.
Yeah. So anything and everything related to pelvic floor, right?
Yeah.
Which I always say this. I didn't know what I didn't know that there was such a thing as a pelvic floor therapist
Mhm.
until I became a mom, which is really sad.
I didn't know that either. I didn't know it for years.
I know. And like they have so many benefits during
Yeah.
that prenatal stage. So, yeah, I'll bring anything and everything related to pelvic floor, anything and everything related to feeding from nursing, clogged ducts
Yeah.
to what to do if you're overproducing, how to connect with other moms,
Mhm.
to starting solids and like
Yeah.
purees, baby led weaning, because there is just so much and you don't know what's best for you until you have like an expert that can tell you.
Sure.
Because, like, yeah, you can go on Google, but then you find these articles. And now, how do you know that that article is credible? Like, how do you know that
Right.
journalist is providing credible resource? What if that person that is being interviewed paid for that interview slot?
Right.
So there's,
Yeah. And you can find one article telling you to do it this way and another article telling you doing it another way. So I would think that maybe, I mean, I don't know, but I would guess that there are moms that have questions that they don't want to ask anybody. So probably there are topics that you talk about that they're glad they're hearing because maybe they're afraid to ask or they're embarrassed to ask or I'm sure that's extremely helpful.
oh, yeah, right. I feel like now I have no filter because I talk
Yeah.
about it all. But, like, for example, when you start your menstrual cycle all over again, or like the actual recovery, I didn't have anyone talk to me about what actually birthing a child was like and
Yeah.
the recovery process after. Like, I had a C-section, but like, no one said that you bleed,
Yeah.
after
You
a
wouldn't think
C-section.
that.
You
Yeah.
wouldn't think that. But you do, right? And so, just like the differences between a vaginal delivery and a C-section, and just how your body recovers,
Right.
what you can do, how a pelvic floor helps both, and
Yeah.
what like kind of potential impacts are from both that your pelvic floor might feel.
Right. Yeah. Lots of things. And isn't it funny how we as moms, like if somebody asks, we are glad to tell them our stories. I mean, I have never met a mom that didn't want to talk about her labor and delivery or I mean, it's like a war story, I guess. You want to tell it all. And so I think that's great. Do you have people write in and ask questions for you? Like maybe subjects they want to hear about or
Yes, I'll have people request certain topics whenever I have an interview coming up. I'll post a question box on my Instagram to get an idea of what kind of questions moms are looking for in that topic
yeah,
and really just kind of get their input because yeah, I'm doing the interviews, but I haven't experienced every single
right.
topic I'm covering.
Sure. What's a common like what do you think is the most common question they ask or the most common subject they want to hear about?
A lot of it is pelvic floor or like breastfeeding related.
Yeah.
Like how to like drinking, anything related
Mhm.
to drinking if you're nursing, or if you what's like the rules with pumping, or how to keep your milk supply, or
Right.
how to also just continue to be able to nurse if you're returning to work and keeping that supply up.
Yeah. There's so much that's involved. Being
Yeah.
a mom, there just is. Well, what about, I know one of the things you taught, I read on your, when I was reading about you, but you talked about how you've learned to balance being a stay-at-home mom and working. What would you tell someone who wants to start something like a podcast or something from home, or they want to do this thing, but they also have kids and they have priorities and they want to find that balance? How would you suggest they do that?
So I feel like I'm very good with boundaries.
Yeah,
Uh, the first thing is kind of determining where you are with setting boundaries. So
yeah,
for me, I don't work on weekends. Shop is closed. That is my family time. Family time is so important for me. So that's going to come first. For example, my husband had 4th of July off and he took Friday off. So I was like, I'm not working. This is
right,
my time. Um, the other thing that I do is during nap time, that's when I determine like what is it that I need to do during nap time?
yeah,
My priority is to get a workout in because I need to be able to take care of myself
sure,
to do the best that I can in all the areas that I am
yeah,
fitting. What does that mean? Well, then that means that like now the house is a mess, the laundry's piling up, the kitchen hasn't been cleaned since breakfast, but you know what? I got a workout in and
that's
physically and
right,
mentally I feel a little better.
yeah. All of that stuff's going to take care of itself.
It will, right? And the house is never going to stop being a mess. The
Oh, no,
clothes are never going to stop being piled up.
no,
So there might be times where I'm like, I just need to do this one thing to feel better. And that might be
right,
making the bed.
yeah,
So kind of determining where I am each day.
yeah,
I wake up early most days during the weekday to get a few of, the admin stuff done. So that's
right,
like emails or the graphics or any of the caption stuff. Um, Finding ways that I can really save time. So anytime I have any Instagram stuff, I always schedule it or I have a draft saved if I can't schedule it. So, for
yeah,
example, you can't schedule anything with collaborators, I'll have it saved. And then that way at 8 a.m., all I have to do is hit share and it'll
right,
post.
yeah,
Otherwise, the scheduling really helps.
yeah,
Um, in the mornings with my son. So that's like the time that I'm with him. But if I'm doing walks, that's when I schedule calls. So
okay,
I'll do.
yeah,
This is the time that I'm setting calls up and I do all of that in advance. And there are definitely days where I'm like, no, I'm not going to do any calls. The only thing I'm doing are emails, and that happens after bedtime.
right. So basically, I mean, you got to do what works for you, because
Yeah.
somebody else may have a completely different, a different
Schedule.
schedule for their kids or different whatever, but you got to do what works for you. So I love that you're doing all that. I wish, of course, I wasn't doing a lot for me, but I wish I had learned to set boundaries a lot sooner than I did. It's such a valuable tool, and I think so many
Mm.
people don't understand how important it is.
Yeah, they do. And I think a lot of people also don't realize, well, I feel like you become really, really good at setting boundaries when you become a parent.
Yeah,
For some, it takes a little longer to get there. And for others, you're a parent and you're mama bear and know in these areas, right?
right.
Um, I think I've just always been pretty good at boundary setting just because I was in a school setting. I was a special ed teacher for a long time and I had to be very
Yeah.
structured. And,
Mhm.
for me, it was I'm off at 3:30, I'm off at 3:30. So everything else can wait unless there's a deadline.
Right. What age group did you teach when you were a special ed teacher?
So during the summers, I taught elementary school. And the reason I did that was because it reminded me why I didn't teach elementary school during the school
Yeah.
year.
I understand.
And then I taught middle school and high school. Middle school
Wow.
was by far my favorite. I loved it.
Really?
Yes, I loved it.
Wow.
I don't know, there's something about middle schoolers where they're figuring out life. They're still kind of little kids but they're a little bit too cool.
Hmm.
but they're still afraid of parents. So you can say, you know, if we're not making progress here, we're gonna have to contact parents.
Right.
And then you can actually see, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do that.
I have a son who has autism. And so that's why I was asking about special ed. We have my husband and I both when we're in a crowd and we see any kids or, any adults, my son's grown now. It's like we just gravitate, to them because that's just our heart. And I think once you're in that environment, you can't help it. That's just kind of what you do. This in the beginning. What do you think moms need a community? And I'm trying to even think what we did before we had stuff like this, before we had cell phones. And like when I was raising my kids, I didn't have a way to communicate and gather with these women and learn stuff like this. But why do you think it's so important now?
Well, so I was one of the first out of my friend groups to become a mom. And so when you become a mom and when you're one of the first ones, like your world drastically changes.
Yeah,
You are oftentimes excluded from things because, well, you're pregnant, you always say no, you can't drink, you're always tired. So there's that, right? And
yeah,
you still, so then you start to feel lonely, but you need to find friends that are going through a
right,
similar situation, right? And when you're a mom during from pregnancy until those like first couple of years, there's so many changes just with a couple of months with babies, but just being able to connect with other moms that are going through that same thing. And you can ask, like, hey, did your little one do this? What did you do? Did you sleep train? Did that work for you? Like, it's just really nice to connect with other moms that are going through the exact same thing and
right.
that you can get input. And I don't want to call it advice because it what works for one isn't always going to work for somebody else, but just to be able to share, this is what I tried and this is what worked for me, and you learn so much.
Yeah,
But for
absolutely.
example, even doing like tummy time, like you don't want to just hang out at home by yourself doing tummy time. Like, what are you going to
Right.
do? It's not enjoyable. So why not find a friend that's also doing tummy time and you can go
Yeah,
out to a park and do it underneath the
there
shade
you
and
go.
have a coffee. And this is a time when you can actually enjoy sitting down because they're not moving.
Right. It's rare.
Yeah, so that initial time,
Yeah,
but then the kids also just start to, not that they really realize that they're making any connections because they don't start to play with each other until they're like two,
yeah,
but you know, they get to see each other all of the time and
yeah.
eventually they'll be wanting to play with each other.
Right. So how often does your podcast air?
I am releasing episodes every other week. So
Every other
every
week. Okay.
other Wednesday, yes.
Uh-huh.
I also have some episodes that I call Mom Talk, which is more of just conversations with um, moms
Hmm.
on different topics from like how to make mom friends to mom guilt to
Oof.
the hardships of being, I hate this term, a stay-at-home mom to the benefits of being, a stay-at-home
Right.
mom. So just different topics that are not my resource episodes, and those
Sure.
are not as often, but I do also release them throughout.
Yeah, I know those are valuable to the moms that are listening. I know they're valuable. Is there a moment or an email that you got or some kind of response or something that just stands out to you after you started this podcast? Something that was just really special?
I have received just messages from moms that are like, oh my goodness, this is so helpful. I didn't know, just going through the struggles.
Yeah,
So anytime that I get a message or when I see the reviews, that just like it brings so much joy because it is a lot of work.
yeah,
And even though not every topic applies to me, like just knowing that it is benefiting somebody
sure.
means that I am doing something that's worth doing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I reach out to people every week who are helping others in some, fashion. I'm amazed at what people are doing across the world. I mean, really, I could list them all. I'm in awe of people. We don't hear about the good things enough. We hear a lot of negative on the news. We don't hear about all the good, but there's people doing great things. And what you're doing is great because for a mom who needs that support, not every mom has a family to support them or has friends that are in, like you said, in that same stage of life. They probably feel lonely. And so what you're doing is so important, so valuable. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about your podcast that you want to tell me?
Um, Geez, not that I can think of. I mean, really, it's just designed to help and support moms out there at any stage from that like preconception to about that 3-year old toddlerhood right before kids
Yeah.
start preschool, right? I'm sure it's going to evolve as
Yeah.
I grow and my son gets older. Right now he's
Yes.
2.
Yeah.
Um, and but yeah, so right now that's kind of the focus.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely be sharing this. I have lots of mom friends. What you're doing is valuable to these moms. And so I love that I got to hear about it and I get to share it.
Well, thank you so much. I
Sure.
so appreciate you taking the time to learn about it because a lot of what I do is word of mouth and sharing with my mom group, but I feel like it's a resource, right?
It is a great resource. Yeah.
There's so much we don't know.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't
It-
know what we don't know until
yeah.
we hear somebody else talking about it.
Yes. And then you're like, oh, that's what
Yeah.
I'm going through.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I hope you have a great afternoon. Enjoy your sunshine and cooler weather. You're not
Thank you so
90s.
much. Thank you. Well,
All
I hope
right.
you stay cool.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.